On the 16th of August 2025, the world's press gathered in Anchorage, Alaska for what they were led to believe was a press conference from Russian President Vladimir Putin and US President Donald Trump. What unfolded was 82 seconds in which both gave a statement saying that essentially nothing had been achieved before they left the stage refusing to answer questions. The bizarre event that was billed by many in the press as a long way for nothing, a sentiment that was shared by anybody, like myself, who made the journey up to Dingwall on Saturday to watch the Rovers side, fresh from their semi-final victory on Wednesday night, fall to a 2-0 defeat to a resurgent Ross County that have, in their last 7 games under Stuart Kettlewell, now picked up as many points as they did in the 19 before it. My name is Blair Hopcroft, and I'll be your host this evening on the Oh No 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 podcast. Pulling the short straw alongside me, I have Greg Brown. How you doing, Greg?
Aye, I'm fine. But the thought of reliving that 90 minutes is not filling me with much in the way of joy, I'm afraid.
Yeah, we'll be 20 minutes and done, mate, don't worry. And alongside us as well, I've got Duncan Cameron. How you doing, Duncan?
Oh, I did backflips, mate. Just absolutely delighted. Nothing I love talking about more than dog shit football games where nothing happens and the Rovers get beat anyway.
Oh, it was brutal. Really, really bad. Right, okay, let's break the arse off this. So, starting lineups is probably the best place to start. 2 changes from the team that played on Wednesday night. Ross Matthews and Innes Cameron coming in to replace Andy Winter, and the injured Jack Hamilton. Duncan, we'll start with you. Happy?
I suppose, like, reasonably. I suppose I could see the sense in it, or well, I could see the theory behind it. Put it that way. I think we're going to spend the bulk of the next 20 minutes, call it that, picking apart that theory, or at least the practical application of it. But it looked to me like it was an attempt to recreate what happened last time we played Ross County, which, as theories go, it's not a bad one. You know, we won 6-0, played this nice kind of tight midfield, the 4-2-2-2, inspired by some French guy whose name I've forgotten. And it worked really well. It seemed like an effort to replicate that. And we've got kind of limited options, I suppose. So, no, I wasn't kicking and screaming at 2 o'clock when I saw it. But I think once again, it just brings us back to the lack of variety that we've got in the squad, as much as anything else.
What about yourself, Greg? We were sat on the bus on the way up. Team sheet arrives.
Yeah, again,
trying to get the emergency exit open.
Aye. Listen, on the face of it, the lineup didn't concern me. I think, definitely not in an attempt to kind of cane Jack Hamilton. I did think, well, if he's not in the squad, full stop. If nothing else, it maybe forces us to just play a wee bit differently, take the opportunity to maybe try and play a wee bit differently. And then once we kind of saw the lineup on the pitch, as Duncan's pointed out, it was kind of like, all right, okay, so we're maybe going to just try and keep it compact, try and keep it narrow. And at that point, my worry was, as it's been for a couple of weeks now, is there is a lot of kind of running in that midfield. There's a lot of kind of energy, not a lot of football, and therefore it was always going to be difficult to try and get around them, getting behind them, and just a real worrying lack of pace in that team as well, which was the biggest thing I think that jumped out at me.
I mean, shape-wise for me, it just never. I don't know if it ever even really settled into that box type thing. No. It almost felt like a 4-2-3-1 off the bat, but it's like we couldn't decide who the two were. It just seemed to have this revolving thing in the middle of the park where it was like, tag, you're it, right? You get to run forward for 5 minutes and we'll kind of try and hold a bit of space. But it just, I don't know, it never really seemed to get going. But at the same time, I mean, I don't know if it was just me, but it didn't feel like they were particularly great either. It wasn't, it wasn't like we were being overrun. It wasn't like, it was being a particularly one-sided game in any way, kind of shape or form. But in saying that, we get this massive kind of view of the future, as it were, on 13 minutes when they get the ball in the net. I mean, it's ultimately chopped off, but it just kind of felt like, right, okay, so here's your afternoon. So Akil Wright, I think it is, picks up the ball in the middle of the park, runs 15, 20, 25 yards, basically unchallenged. Little 1-2 with Conor Randall, and then kind of squares up to Lewis Stevenson and dummies the ball, actually, to be fair, and the two of them miss it and the ball goes through. Akil Wright decides to run round the linesman to get there, gets on the end of the ball, and the referee blows for a free kick despite Wright being in possession in the final third. And then from the resulting free kick, you've got Jay Henderson puts in, quite honestly, what is a beautiful cross. Really good ball. And Declan Gallagher's at the back post completely unmarked, completely unchallenged, and headers the ball back across the goal and into the net. So, I mean, I think it raises two major questions, other than, was that what we were going to see all afternoon, which the answer is yeah. But Duncan, we'll start with you. Was it a foul? And was it offside?
I don't think it's a foul. I think I really think it's the referee almost sort of being sympathetic because the linesman's got in the way.
Yeah,
it's like an overcorrection where he's almost I'm projecting a lot of emotion onto a referee. I don't think they have any, but like he's almost like embarrassed on his linesman's behalf. Where it's like, oh, he's getting in the boy's way. I'm just going to give him a free kick. Because I don't think Stevenson does enough to foul him. But I also think in the moment, Akil Wright would have rather had the advantage. Yeah. You know, he's, as you say, he's got the ball and Stevenson's not exactly kind of set. When that ball comes over, is he offside? On balance, I don't think so. I mean, maybe. I'm not convinced I've seen a kind of fully definitive option, so I'm willing to be argued with there. What I will say is this might be the worst defending of all time? Question mark? Because Declan Gallagher is like unmarked, like literally unmarked.
Yeah.
You know, I think a lot of the time you talk about this and you go, oh, he's unmarked. And what you mean is he's managed to get away from his runner.
Yeah.
Like, no, there's nobody seems remotely interested in acknowledging that Declan Gallagher exists. And it's something that I think I want to come back to, particularly in relation to the second goal, which is like, County have a lot of big boys. Like, that is very much their thing. They're the big boys. And sometimes defending set pieces gets difficult in that sense because you run out of big boys yourself. But yeah, just leaving Declan Gallagher completely free is astonishing, I think, as much as anything else. And yeah, Dougie and we talked after the match about not learning that lesson. I think we can, certainly agree with him on that point.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think he's definitely got a point. What did you think, Greg?
So for me, when the ref first blew his whistle, I genuinely thought he'd stopped the game because of the linesman incident. I truthfully didn't think it was a free kick at all. As for the offside, I didn't think it was offside in real time at the time. Haven't seen it back, although, like Duncan says, there's not a kind of conclusive angle. I'm definitely not convinced that is a glaring sort of offside. Most worryingly is a defensive unit that were just, it seemed all very, very keen for somebody else to do something, for somebody else to deal with it. And that also is probably inclusive of Josh Ray, who's just kind of coming in for a wee bit of flack over the last wee while for kind of being glued to his line, not coming out and whatever. Yeah. I'm not saying that he should have been coming out for that one, but the whole defence was just static, just stood there. Yeah. And then when it went in, just, even though like ultimately it was offside, a very muted response, just a kind of, oh shit, here, like, there we go. Like, as if, well, what were you expecting? Like, if you give somebody a literal free header after a great ball in like that, of course you're going to be in bother. So that was worrying, and I know Emery made a point of explicitly saying, you know, they didn't take any heed from that like there was no there was no kind of, right, we need to switch on now, we're really quite slow to get going. And actually it kind of immediately for me set the tone of we're in for a long afternoon against a team that are going to be out to do this time and time again.
Just to your point on Ray there, the ball's in the air for a long, long time.
Yeah.
So it's quite far away by the time it comes down. Different goalkeepers have different styles and different approaches, and the last thing you want is a goalkeeper coming flying out if he's not confident.
Yeah.
But particularly just for this game, I can very readily picture Trevor Carson ambling away with the ball in his hands after that free kick.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And not making it look particularly stressful in the doing. So yeah, I think there's a lot of bodies, there's a lot of distance. It's not one where your immediate reaction goes, oh my God, the goalkeeper's had a howler there. But totally. I do also think that there are goalkeepers who would have dealt with that, basically, I think is probably my point there.
I do wonder on that point if the number of big boys, the number of big solid bodies that are in the way probably plays a little bit of a part in that as well. Do you know, if you're coming out, like, I mean, to turn it around,
it's in your head.
Absolutely right. If you're Trevor Carson coming out and you've got Lewis Vaughan in front of you, you're not quite so worried as, you know, when you've got Jordan White and Ikpeazu kind of right on top of you. It just, I mean, Emery talks about it in his post-match, which we'll need to come back to as well, but it just felt like, right, here's your afternoon. It was a complete window into what we had to kind of deal with for the rest of the day, and we didn't do it. And I mean, that's criminal for a really experienced back four. You know, you've got Stevenson and Hanlon in there. You've got O'Connor, who's not inexperienced. I mean, he's got obviously less experience than the other two. And Doherty as well. It's not like that's a makeshift back four, or it's there's a young boy in there who's not learning his lesson. That's criminal, surely.
I think that's more egregious than the other two, than the actual goals we concede. And given the nick of the first one, that's saying something.
Yeah, totally. So the first half kind of meanders on. We get to about the half an hour mark, and I mean, by my recollection, I mean, to be fair, Greg will attest to this, I'd been drinking all day. It did feel like, no, I'm actually, to be fair, it's the only reason I think I managed to get through it alive. The only real opportunity that we created came, like I say, about half an hour in. Jordan Doherty finds a bit of space on the right, plays in a really nice kind of deep cross, and Big Innes gets his head on it, but kind of coming from behind him, can't get a huge amount on it, and effectively rolls it straight at Trevor Carson. I mean, I remember sitting in the stand and thinking, Ross County are dug meat, we can get at them today. Like, that's there. Was that, I mean, Greg, you were literally there to witness all of this. Was that the Guinness talking, or did you actually think that was a kind of a viable route to go?
No, listen, it's not it's easy to be glib when you've been beaten, especially when you've lost against bottom of the league. But football's a meritocracy, and for Ross County to be sitting where they are in the league after 26 games, they're there for a reason, because fundamentally they're not very good, and they haven't been very good this season. And I think actually there's, for all that, like of late, I've been saying there's not a lot of football in the Rovers side. There's no a lot of football in that Ross County team either. And what was so frustrating was that nothing clicked at any real point for Rovers on Saturday to make Ross County defend, to ask a question of how they were trying to set up. Because beyond, it wasn't even like they were banging crosses in left, right, and centre. They were playing for set pieces and playing for kind of that kind of staged play. But to just allow them to do that, to not make the most of any sort of chances, half chances that come your way, it was quite galling. But no, I agree with you that even within the first 20 minutes, 25 minutes, it was pretty clear that they're not great. They're not great. And okay, they've got the opportunity to take their chances, quite literally. We saw that on Saturday. But it's not like they're carving you open time and time again and fashioning chances here, there and everywhere. actually they just kind of hang about until they get their chances and then they hope that they take them. But I think if this is where teams like Morton and so on have had a bit of joy, where they've kind of just tried to disrupt that a wee bit and not allowed them to play their own game. And I think we were far too passive in that respect, that when you talk about the experience we've got in the team, and Emery talked about it post-match about, what to avoid and what they were looking to do, it just never worked. At any point, it just didn't work. And even down to I just thought we were really poor at even stringing passes together and whatnot. And on a serious note, I do wonder how much of that was down to the glare in the first half from the sun. I personally found it difficult at times to kind of, through, if you're squinting, working out kind of exactly who was who over short distances. But actually, to just not get the ball at the park, to not be fashioning even half chances throughout the first half and beyond, it flattered Ross County. I genuinely don't think they're all that much. They are bottom of the league for a reason. Listen, they might not finish there, and that's a different thing entirely. But after 26 games, they have shown enough that they are there to be got at, even at home. And I think we gave them a wee bit too much respect on Saturday.
No, I think that's fair.
Well, they're obviously a better side under Kettlewell than they were previously.
Oh, absolutely.
There's no getting away from that. But it does feel like both of these sides, actually, are kind of, I don't know if one trick pony is quite right, but it's like they've both got one special feature. Counties as set pieces.
Yeah.
So they're we're basically just, by choice or otherwise, jobbing through a game until we get a corner, and then we'll maybe score for the corner. And so you're just playing possession football and you're playing for set pieces. And it worked like a dream on Saturday.
Yeah, it really did.
And skipping ahead slightly, but because I think the Rovers' special feature, to use this thing I've just made up, is clean sheets. We keep clean sheets. Yeah. So we keep clean sheets. So we stay in games. And then, in theory, sometimes we score goals. And actually, so it's if you're going to keep a clean sheet, it's not foolproof, obviously, but if you are, you only need one chance because you keep them out at the other end. But this is where this thing completely falls apart because, when their Godzilla meets our skyscraper and knocks in a header, we are scuppered. We've not got our special feature anymore, and now we are just a very, very ordinary side that doesn't have a plan.
Yeah.
I think that's fair. I was going to say the special feature of keeping clean sheets. It is that thing of you get one go at it. Do you know what I mean? You concede a goal, that's gone. You've nothing else. Whereas being good at set pieces, you didn't take your first set piece, you get another one. You didn't take the second one, you get another one. And if you're defending the way we do, you get 5 on the bounce.
It's like shooting first in a duel. If you miss, you're fucked. Sorry.
That's so from your vast experience.
Right, Duncan, stick with you then, because I know you've mentioned it a couple of times already. This first goal. Do you want to talk us through it?
Nope. Nothing I would rather do less. It's a really easy one, I think, to sort of quote unquote analyse, because there's a very clear culprit in this. It is the epitome of. I don't even know if it's ball watching or if it's just Paul Ince is unfortunately is the villain of the piece here. It's a decent enough ball in. It's a Rovers head that gets to it first, and when it drops, the freeze frame is Paul Ince's biggest enemy here, because when the ball drops, he's got a 2-foot advantage on Jordan White, and a half second later, he's in exactly the same place he was, holding onto Jordan White's arm as he puts the ball in the goal. He never changes his kind of battle stance. His entire thought, the whole way through that set piece, is I'm just going to hold on to Jordan White. And halfway through, he should switch to I'm going to kick the ball away, and he just doesn't. He's just like he's too he's kind of myopic. He's worried about the physical battle with Jordan White.
Yeah,
that he's not actually never likely to win because Jordan White is very, very good at this. But as I say, it's like he doesn't then switch lanes partway through and actually just go to the use an old phrase, the biggest fire first, which is that the ball is loose in the box. Just kick the ball away, mate. And it's all the usual stuff. You can guess what I'm about to say. It's a young player. You learn from these things. That all applies. That's nothing but just kick the ball away, mate.
But also, to go back to borrow your analogy from a minute ago, if Jordan White is their Godzilla, why on earth are we not putting a skyscraper there and instead expecting it to be thwarted by a bungalow? And that's like, again, it's not to be disparaging to Incio, but like we're not so far. We've been generally impressed with Incio. We're not seeing him as being renowned for his heading abilities, defensive kind of qualities. Why on earth is it Incio that's left to pick up White? And it's galling to see that kind of, I don't use the word lightly, but that pathetic attempt at kind of holding on to him as if to say, like, no, please didn't have a go at that. Go no score. And actually, there's so much experience in that defence. It's not a scratch team. Why are you not able to, even somebody that is relatively new to the team, like Innes Cameron, etc., why are you not just like man for man in terms of height and working it from there? Like, if nothing else, there's your basic approach. Don't leave Incio on somebody like Jordan White.
So I was going to say some sympathy on this because you run out of big boys. I went through this for the second goal, so I've not got it the kind of man for the first. But you basically, if you just start, start that Ross County team agnostically, just on height alone.
Yeah, Jordan White's probably mid-list.
Exactly. Your 6 footers, you're basically going, right, I need to find somebody to cover Ikpeazu, Jordan White, Akil Wright, Declan Gallagher, Levis Patan, and then that's just your forwards and defenders.
Yeah.
You then got like Lindsay's not a wee guy. Connor Randall's not terrible. Like Sean Mackey can still put himself about. But like and if you start with the Rovers team, as you say, you go right, 2 big centre halves. They'll definitely, they'll take 2. Take Ikpeazu, take Gallagher. And then you go, right, Jordan Doherty's not the tallest guy in the world, but he knows how to defend. Right, you can take Akil, right. Then you're going, right, Innes Cameron, I need you to pick up somebody. Paul Incio's next.
Mm-hmm.
Because after Paul Incio, it's Lewis Stevenson, it's Scott Brown, it's Ross Matthews. Like, you run out of guys too soon.
Yeah,
I think my issue with that whole thing, I think you are right. I have the similar sympathy, but I'm minded of that first game under Barry Robson at Ayr.
Yeah,
we had Lewis Stevenson picking up George Oakley.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, height is one part of it, right? But like physical presence and aerial ability is another part of it. Like, I'm not being funny, and I know like Ikpeazu scores a header in this game. Ikpeazu's not as good in the air as Jordan White for me. Jordan White is probably the more dangerous of the two of them. For a start, it's not just based on the height. But I think you are right, Duncan. I think you do. You get to a point. I mean, he's going to have to pick up somebody, and the person he's going to pick up is going to be 6 foot. Like, just by the logic of numbers.
Well, just while we're talking about it, to skip ahead briefly to the second goal, it's Ikpeazu who heads in that goal.
Yep.
By that point, Darragh O'Connor is marking Declan Gallagher, who'd scored once, albeit he was offside, and Paul Hanlon is marking Jordan White. So it's almost like the Rovers have had to, as the game has gone on,
adjust,
order their kind of who's the biggest threat. And as I say, the problem is you just run out of. It's like top trumps.
Yeah, totally.
Mm-hmm.
You've only got a certain number of cards that actually outnumber anybody that they've got.
I mean, you've got delivery, the quality that's coming in. I mean, I know this one's Sean Mackey, but the quality of the set pieces all day for Ross County, I thought were really, really good quality. And for me, that was something that was massively missing for us and has been missing for us for
quite some time.
A good while, because we've got some of that height, we've got some of that physical presence. And with the exception of Josh Mullen, I don't really think there's anybody consistently putting in good balls. Easton's delivery for set pieces just isn't good enough. Vaughan came in and did a decent enough job at Ayr, put in a good couple of crosses and a good couple of kind of free kicks or whatever. But we just didn't have that consistency. And they were on it all day. Like you say, it's their secret weapon. It's the superpower they possess, kind of thing. And it's what they kind of stick to. But yeah, it's brutal to watch, because was it not this week that, did somebody not say something about, was it Jags Analytic on Twitter had worked out that we actually are, is it the best in the championship at defending set pieces?
I think it's corners. So I think it was quite a far down the line statistic. So it was corners that lead to a shot.
Oh yeah,
we are very, very good at stopping those shots going in, I think. I'm right in saying. It was something like the league average is like 15%. Or something. I've just made that up. But we are like 4%, something like that.
Yeah, it was markedly low. Like it was.
Yeah, but as I say, what I don't think that actually covers is, it would probably cover white. I don't know. I don't. As I say, I think it was whatever it was. As you say, it was a defensive metric, and we were outperforming everyone else.
Yeah, did not look like that on Saturday.
No, it didn't.
No. So we make our way up the pitch, and within about 5 minutes or so, have a shout for a penalty, Greg. Innes Cameron hits the ball against Jamie Lindsay's hand.
Nah, not for me.
Not with you.
And actually, I think Cameron's reaction in itself tells you a lot. He's looking for the corner first and foremost, and then it's like, oh, wait a minute, actually, it hit his hand. It's one of these things. I'm not actually convinced that the defender's got a huge amount of time to kind of deal with it or any differently. So, not a penalty for me. I didn't have me in my seat for that.
Duncan, what did you think about the Dara O'Connor? I'm going to call it a clearance at the back post from the resulting corner that the ball came across. I mean, I know he's a centre half. He's got to be doing better there, right?
Yeah, I think he does. I mean, he definitely does. Just to go back just a step. So, I mean, these are basically the two highlights we've got to talk about from a Rovers sense from this half. So it was Cameron's header that you mentioned before, and then this one for the handball shout, which you're right, isn't a penalty. Both of them, it's Jordan Doherty basically just slinging the ball up from the right-hand side. And it's more evident, actually, with the first one, where he's sort of marauding, maybe, from right back. And there's nobody really comes to stop him.
Nobody.
But you can see, he looks, and you can see him going, I've got nothing. I've got nothing. I don't have anything at all. And he just goes, there's a big laddie over there. They seem to be getting change out of this, and he just puts it along, and he does it the same for this. And I mean, listen, create's the only two things we've got to talk about, but there's a whole midfield.
Aye.
And, in theory, that should be an evidence in this game, and it's just not, both in the sense that in those two occasions, Jordan Doherty doesn't feel like he can use his midfield, and also that throughout the rest of it, the midfield haven't created anything for us to talk about either. But yes, Dara O'Connor. Listen, I think it's an easy one to kind of slag him off for. Like, yes, of course, he should just not try and absolutely put all the power in the world through it. He can probably even just try and cut it in, and it'll probably end up in the back of the goal off somebody else. But big centre half will do it. Right. That's I think in my I suppose I'm much more bothered about the stuff that he and his pals didn't do in the other box than that miss there. That's
one
of these things, I think.
By the by. So then the fun kept coming. 43 minutes in, and so we're only about 5 or so minutes after that. free kick. Now, there was nothing in the highlights about the free kick, but Emery was pretty quick to call out Niso in giving away this free kick. I think he called him naive. I think was the word that he used. But the free kick comes in again from Jay Henderson. Again, a very good ball. I think it's Stevenson that flicks it past. I have to be honest, from where I was sat, which was kind of the other side of the goal, the same side of the free kick came from, I thought Stevenson had flicked it the top corner. I'm not going to lie. It looked a lot closer in person than what it turned out to be. But then I think it was it 5 corners later?
Yeah.
We end up with another Jay Henderson cross coming in from the other side, because I think the first 4, this is where the fogginess does kick in, but I think the first 4 were all on the far side, and then Henderson takes his takes his corner, and it's Paul Incio again marking another goal scorer. I mean, I've literally written down what the fuck, because do you know what I mean? Yeah.
So thoughts? Just to quickly jump in, sorry, before Greg gets to talk about the goal itself, that free kick that Incio concedes is one of the most frustratingly naive, where the player is going in the wrong direction. He's effectively heading to the touchline with no plan, and he slows down, and you just run into the back of him. Yeah. And it's just naive. It's just, and it winds me up any time it happens. It wasn't the only time it happened in that half. And for other Rovers players as well. But I can see why Dougie annoyed by it. It's like, just don't do that. Like, he's going to do that. Just don't get touch tight. And so that's where that then all comes from. But I think it is a little bit harsh to blame the concession of a free kick out wide. It's just like the butterfly effect. Like 6 corners later, or I think we're adding a corner on every time we talk about it. It feels hard to kind of criticise just the boy who conceded the original. Although it's the same guy who doesn't crack his marker. But sorry, just to come in.
No, I think for me it's I was actually far more annoyed at Incio after the first goal. I'm prepared to cut him a fair bit more slack this time, especially by my own logic. You know, you're talking about matching up players. Like, goals like this can happen. I think the frustrating thing is, like, it's the number of chances that you have to clear your lines and don't take them. That kind of just be levelled at Incio. That's the whole team. If you're going to get chance after chance, corner after corner, to kind of get the ball up the park, to have an exit strategy of some kind, and then not, whether it's your first corner, 5th corner, 10th corner, it doesn't matter. Like, guys like Piazzu are going to be able to put headers away like that. So very, very frustrating, especially given the timing of it. Because up to that point, you're thinking, right, okay, it is only 1-0. You get into half time, Emery's probably going to kick a few arses anyway, and then maybe we come out with a bit more impetus. That goal going in just kind of, just kind of torpedoed anything. Because then at that point you're going, listen, we didn't score goals away from home as it is. So, as cliched as it is, when it's 1-0 down, all you're needing is, you know, even a dodgy penalty decision or a free kick near the edge of the box or something, a corner. Now you're 2-0 down, you're actually going to have to start playing football. You're actually going to have to start, like, forcibly getting yourself back into the game. And it was just very tame. I just felt defensively, and I don't just mean the defence. Duncan, you mentioned the midfield, but the Rovers were so passive on Saturday, so just in a real malaise. And listen, I dare say we'll have a conversation in a wee while about what that might mean for in games and weeks to come. But I really did feel Emery must have been absolutely, like, baffled by what he was seeing in front of him, that there's no danger he's setting a team up to play with as much naivety as that. And he singled out Incio, and Incio did. I mean, I said as much on Saturday, and Incio played every bit the academy player on Saturday, played like the young inexperienced lad that he actually is, and listen, that he'll just need to kind of take that on the chin. But across the park, there was a lot of players kind of posted missing, and I thought that sequence of defending corners and then ultimately leading up to the goal, there's quite a few that, metaphorically as much as literally, I think needed to stand up and be counted a wee bit more than they were.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I just find the whole thing, the whole thing really, really hard to kind of, which is it's not helpful being on a podcast, but I find it really hard to put into words because
draw us a picture and show us for the YouTube.
Totally. But I mean, I'm sitting there. I've said already. I mean, I was a good few Guinness deep, but I was sitting there at half time. I mean, obviously it's 2 minutes before half time.
Yeah,
so the whistle goes no long after it. But like, I wasn't sitting there thinking we've been absolutely murdered today. We hadn't been good by any stretch of the imagination, but neither had they. And it's like 2 set pieces. I mean, in fairness, 2 set pieces out of about 15, but 2 set pieces and they're 2 goals up. I don't remember them really, creating us any bother other than the set pieces.
Mm-hmm.
And the problem was for us is we weren't causing them any bother, and we didn't have set pieces. There was like nothing you could kind of hang your hat on. And the more I watch it, the more kind of week to week, I'm not getting why Josh Mullen's not playing. I know I'm like I've said already, I organised the barbecue for his fan club, but I don't honestly understand. I don't understand the thought process. I didn't understand it on Wednesday night when he played
Andy
Winter out wide right.
Mm-hmm.
It made no sense to me whatsoever. It didn't make any sense to me on Saturday. It did. I think I'm with you guys in terms of when the team line came out. I was the same as you, Duncan, talking about narrow. We're going to try and play that box midfield, try and do something that's clearly worked. But we never really actually seemed to do that. Didn't. And yet he still didn't have the personnel on the pitch that actually are capable of. You've got Innes Cameron in there, who, and we've already mentioned him a couple of times. He's had the chance for the header, which I actually thought he did pretty well with, because there wasn't much more he could have done with it.
Yeah.
And then the second one that we're saying, and quite rightly, wasn't a penalty that we get the corner from. The ball comes into his feet. He takes it down, gets the ball out from his feet, and gets a shot away, which we've not seen a lot of in a Rovers striker this season. But Dougie Imrie in his post-match interview talks about we didn't feed him enough and we didn't put enough crosses into the box. But you've not picked anybody that puts crosses into the box.
Yeah,
exactly.
Do you know what I mean? And it's like, how long do we just go? Like, I enjoyed his interview after the game as well, because he tells it like it is, and he's calling a spade and all the rest of it. And he does say that he deserves to take a bit of the blame for it as well. But I think he absolutely does, because we keep doing the same thing over and over again, and wondering why it's not working. But we're flooding the midfield, but we're not controlling the midfield. We don't play through the midfield. We don't build in the midfield, but we've got 3 centre midfielders on the park.
This is it. Like 200 episodes ago, and I'm not putting any of us up as oracles of the game here, but 200 episodes of this podcast ago, we were saying that Ross Matthews and Scott Brown can't play in the same midfield.
Yeah, totally.
And nothing I've seen since has convinced me otherwise. And now you could argue they both played in that 6-0, but they played in very different roles. Brown was further up the park. And that was the big thing. As I say, when I saw the lineup, it was like, right, hang on a second. Logically, this looks to me like it will have to be that same 2-2-2 through the kind of midfield. But it wasn't really. It was more what we've been most of the time, which is Easton plays off the left. The striker, either Hamilton or Cameron, plays up front. Vaughan kind of loiters with intent wherever he wants. There's not really anyone on the right-hand side at all. And then there's 3 midfielders, the furthest forward of whom charges about slightly more than the other 2 at any given point. But there's no... God, I'm just repeating myself again. I apologise. But like, there's no penetration. There's no progression of the ball. It's very much a case of, oh, bloody hell, I really hope the ball finds its way to Dylan Easton on that left-hand side, because then we might be able to do something.
Mm-hmm.
But there's no... that. It's like
No.
the thing from The Simpsons when Homer goes to the bar and then it's just like, scene missing. It's like, we've got the ball in the midfield, scene missing. Dylan Easton's got it on the left-hand side. Like, that bit, there's not... It's like...
Actually, what happens is, scene missing, we've got the ball back to the centre halves. And
Exactly.
we're starting again.
If Greg asked you to draw a picture of that missing scene, you'd be like, I don't know what it is. Like, I don't know how we get the ball. And crucially, unfortunately, it seems like Dougie Emery doesn't really know how we get the ball.
Yeah.
Just through the park. Like, how do we just take the ball forwards? We're all right in our own third, and we're probably on balance just about all right in the final third. Maybe.
Yeah.
But there's nothing in between.
Nothing.
There's nothing. Dougie Emery a few weeks ago said that Scott Brown and Ross Matthews are dogs in midfield. And you could see as the words left his mouth, he kind of went, that sounds like I'm slagging them off. And he sort of clarified that and was like, that's what you need sometimes. And it's like, that is what you need sometimes.
Right, sometimes.
One of. Like, that is one. You need one dog in midfield, and preferably surrounded by some football players. Human football players. And then,
to be fair to him, you maybe need two of them against St John's. Do you know what I mean? When you're playing one of the sort of top sides in the league, you maybe need it just to break things up. I'm not sure I agree, but I can get the logic.
You can
you
make
don't
a
need that
case
against
for
Bottom of the League Ross County.
No.
Who are playing for set pieces.
There is an element of this which is like, well, what else have you got? You know, we don't have an abundance of players. I think we've got two fewer players in our first team squad than anybody else in the division. Yeah. And of those 22 that we've got, two of them are out. So Byrne, I think, is out for the season. I don't know about Paul McMillan, actually. We've not had Callum Fordyce particularly recently either. So it is a small squad. And as more so than that, it's not a very varied squad.
No, it's true.
It's just the same guys lying on top of one another.
But this is the thing, like, so I can cut Emery a fair bit of slack if you think, like, we talked earlier about Ross County being a physically, like, kind of big side in the sense that they've got tall players. So on paper, I kind of get not playing Mullen, not playing wingers to just swing balls in, to have monsters kind of head the ball away against, okay, an open play, you've got Innes Cameron, you've also got Lewis Vaughan trying to win headers. And we know how frustrating it can be to time and time again watch balls get launched up to Lewis Vaughan. It's just not going to work. But your alternative then is you have to get them on the turn. You have to play the ball in and you have to turn the defence and you have to force them to defend and force the question of, we're going to be fluid, we're going to inject a bit of pace, we're going to ask questions of you. That didn't happen either. So what you've then got is the static midfield with, as Duncan says, three central midfielders who are largely carbon copies of one another in what they do. They've varying levels of experience and, of course, different levels of ability. But for the argument, not a significant range of ability there. And actually then you've got Easton, who yet again is then burdened with this, well, it's all on you, mate, because if you're not doing something, there's no creativity. And then you've got Vaughan, who is, for as much as I love him, he's not a 10. So you're then looking at, well, he's coming deep to try and fashion chances that aren't happening, because also there's no progressive passes from the midfield. So you're negating him. You're nullifying him entirely. You're taking Vaughan right out of the game. And then you've got Cameron hanging about going, well, am I waiting on crosses coming in, or am I coming deep to try and take pass? Am I linking? But there's just no plan from the halfway line forward. There's no clear plan of attack. So it was puzzling then to have Emery kind of query the whole, like, oh, we're not putting crosses in. Well, I agree with you entirely. We didn't set up to play like that. No. And I actually think rightly so, given the opposition. But given the opposition, we should have been getting them on the turn. We should have been trying to play through their midfield, because they're not very good.
That was the big difference in the 6-0 game. It was the front two in that one. It was Hamilton and McMullen.
Yeah.
And it was McMullen's running had really had them worried.
Yeah, but we talked about that being McMullen's best game,
Totally.
like to date, and I think it's pretty telling. We missed that on Saturday massively.
I think for me, if you're not, and everything you're saying is right, and I think the 2-2-2 thing almost certainly wasn't going to work again.
Yeah.
I'm not entirely convinced you could pull that off. You know, I think you get away with that because no one saw it coming, which they should have done because they'd done it already. But I don't think you get away with it a third time. Do you know what I mean? So for me, like I've had a debate or two with Robbie in the past about Dylan Easton playing on the left. I still think his best position is out on the left, squaring up a fullback and taking him on. But he doesn't offer you width in a natural kind of sense. You know, he's not a wide man as such. And I think the problem I have is that we've got nothing on the other side either. And so you've got no kind of counter to that. So Vaughan drops in, he gets the ball and he turns and he looks up. He's got the choice of rolling it to Dylan Easton, who's going to try and take on a man on one side. If that's not on, he's got the option of knocking the ball to Ennis Cameron, who may or may not be able to do something at that point. His only other option is to roll it back into the midfield, who will turn around and roll it straight back to the centre halves.
Yeah.
And then we just start that rotation all over again. Whereas I think for me, if you've got a Josh Mullen or whoever, a Chin or somebody as a winger, at least it gives you that other option of when Vaughan drops in and brings the ball into feet, he's one of the few we've got who's capable of taking the ball on the turn and kind of looking out and playing that next pass. If he's got the option of wide man who can knock the ball into the big striker, playing the ball into the striker, or playing the ball to your greatest showman who's out on the left-hand side and has got a chance of kind of breaking things up, it's what we keep talking about, is variety.
Yep.
Whereas at the moment, he's not got any variety. He's basically got the option of knocking the ball into the striker, trying to play the ball into the showman on the left, or rolling it backwards, or trying to take on a man himself. Do you know what I mean? You just run out of options because we had zero actual width. And I get what you're saying, Greg. You're absolutely right. Knocking the ball in to big, centre halves who are going to header the ball away all the time. You can't just keep doing it over and over again.
No,
you can do it once or twice. You can give them something to kind of think about. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, you can definitely mix it up. But I think so the crux of the point there is the team was set up on Saturday to flood the midfield, to have more numbers in the midfield, and it just felt like a very conscious decision time and time again to miss the midfield out and rifle it up from the back.
Yeah.
Which
this
begs the question:
thing.
What's the point?
It's a flooded midfield without the ball.
Yeah,
it's not with the ball. It's not 4 ball playing midfielders. Like, you can imagine a side in the Championship, like Falkirk verged on this at times last season, where they're packing the midfield and it's guys who play triangles, and it's a nightmare to play against because it's exhausting to do it. Whereas we don't have that. We've got bodies in the midfield, dogs in the midfield, who, when you've got the ball, we're all like, good luck playing passing triangles against us. But as soon as we've got, there's not, you said it yourself, Greg, there's not enough football in that Rovers midfield. And it was like, NCO, I said this on the podcast after the Airdrie game with Scott, there's a real willingness from Paul NCO to try and get the ball going in the right direction and run it or pass it. But it's like, willingness is it's a little bit kind of damning with faint praise.
Yeah.
Nobody says that like Lionel Messi's really willing to go and beat 4 men and stick the ball in the goal. Like, it's and it's better than nothing. And it is admirable, but it's still like, we're trying to win championship games of football. You need more than just one guy who's willing to try it. And again, as I say, there's only so much you can do about this. Like, it is difficult, and it's, any plan you come up with can always be countered. That's the beauty of the game. But it does feel a little bit like we're just trying the same stuff that was happening at the start of the season. And to go back to a point from earlier, it kind of feels to me like, having assessed all the options, the answer that Dougie Imrie's come up with is probably just try and keep the clean sheet and see what happens up the other end.
Yeah.
And maybe he's right. Because maybe if you do try and go be a bit more expansive and you take one of those midfielders out and you put Josh Mullen in, maybe you get overrun in the midfield. Maybe then we start conceding more goals and we still don't score any up the other end. I don't know. But this is the problem, and it's not a new problem, and it's one that we need to resolve.
Mm-hmm.
I just feel like that whole team was set up to nullify a problem that didn't exist. I mean, we keep talking about this dogs in the midfield and packing bodies, and there's not enough. Ross County didn't play through the midfield.
No.
They play the ball out wide, and they try and get the ball into the box, either from wingers or fullback crossing the ball, or winning a set piece and getting the ball into the box. They've got zero interest in trying to play through the middle of you.
But this is
he says as much in his interview.
Yeah. But you play these dogs in midfield, and what they are good at is winning the ball back. But what comes with the territory of that is you give away your fair share of fouls because you disrupt. But so it's actually counterintuitive to playing against Ross County, because you've got then Matthews and Brown and so on who are going to disrupt play, and they're not going to let you run. But as you've exactly as you put it, that's not what they're wanting to do. They want to get into the pitch, maybe into the final third, into half of the pitch, maybe into the final third, and then they want a foul. Then they want the free kick and to hit the reset button. But anyway, how we're still on the first half of this game, I don't know.
Absolutely nothing happens.
Well, nothing happens. Yeah, I was going to say, and that's us for this evening. Thanks very much for joining us.
Did either goalkeeper make a save in this game? No. Other than Carson kind of collects that header in the first half from Cameron. Other than that,
nothing.
It's not an exaggeration to say it was a truly terrible game of football.
It really was.
It really was.
But this is, I think, is my point. Like, you're sitting there at half time, you're 2-0 down, and there is an element of how the hell did that happen? Like, they've not played us off the park. And I know we've not been great or whatever. We've been a bit slow to start, blah blah blah. But you're 2-0 down, and we've no way back. I mean, right. I've got kind of notes in the second half. But I've got to be honest. There's basically nothing in it. There's a block from Paul Hanlon, who does pretty well actually. The boy has a pretty decent strike. Hanlon blocks it. Again, the ball comes into the box, and again, I thought Innes Cameron did pretty well getting the ball down, kind of on the turn, and Gallagher gets a foot in, and the two clash, and there's a wee half shout for a penalty, but not in a country mile is that anywhere even close to it. Nah. Then we've got the one that comes off Conor Randall. So this was right in front of where we were sat, in that stand behind the goals. I've got to be honest, I was screaming for it. Like, all day, every day, for me, that's a penalty. It's not, it's not too close to him. I mean, it kind of comes up off of him, but it comes up off of him and he's turning into it. He for me, kind of pretty much controls it with his hand. But Duncan, am I clutching at straws?
No, I think you're right, but let me just watch it back one more time, just because of something you said there has made me reconsider something. Bear with me.
Just while Duncan's watching that, for me at the time, it was visceral. My reaction, I thought it was an absolute stick on. I have to admit, having watched it back in the highlights, I'm not as convinced now. If I'm remembering rightly from the highlights, he's got a kind of, and hopefully you know what I mean with the description of he's got a closed wrist sort of approach to it. His hands not kind of splayed. His arms kind of by his side. Put it this way: if that was the other way around and it was given, I'd be pretty pissed. So,
maybe.
I think at the time I was just desperate to cling on to something.
I felt it was like his upper arm. It's like the bit above the elbow, kind of. It turns into it.
If I'd seen it written down, the phrase "closed wrist" wouldn't have made a single lick of sense to me. But accompanied with the footage,
I gave you an audio description.
What you mean.
Yeah,
I do know exactly what you mean. And actually, so what you'd said there, Blair, was that it comes up off him, and that's what I had to double check. It doesn't. It comes off his teammate, and that's important. Because there's a kind of carve out in the rules that if the ball comes off you and then hits your hand,
oh yeah, that's true. Yeah,
that's fine. So that was what I wanted to double check. But it comes off his teammate. The only thing that would sort of let him away with it is that his hand is by his side. It's certainly not in an unnatural position, whether his wrists are open or closed. It could have been me, my wrists were closed. His hand is by his side. And again, actually, I think I've probably said this before, because I think this is where my own personal beliefs differ from the rules of the game, which is that I think he gains an advantage because it hits his hand.
Yeah, that's where I'm at.
Which is actually, the ball is basically going past him and it comes off his hand, or it comes off his arm. Like, I think that should be a penalty because he's gained an advantage through using his hand, which he shouldn't be allowed to do. On balance, and looking at it back, so I suppose before this conversation started, I would have said the referee hasn't seen it, because if he has seen it, he'll give it. Whereas actually, I wonder if he has seen it and he's gone, you know what, his hand's by his side.
Mm-hmm.
Because he's not making himself bigger. Another phrase that makes no sense.
Yeah, but I think that's where I'm at with it, is based on where the referee was kind of likely standing from memory. I think it's exactly that. Is what he's seen is a kind of not a closed wrist, but even a closed body shape. Of he's not making himself bigger. Aye. As
I say, the ball is kind of going by him and doesn't because it hits his arm, but it's by his side. So, and again, like, it feels like splitting hairs, really. Given, I mean, listen.
Well, I was going to say is
a potential goal would change a game, but
is that still in the referee's mind when Stevenson brings down his man all but 2 minutes later at the other end of the park? Do you think?
I'm not sure.
I'll be honest. I actually thought, again live, I thought, I thought the Stevenson one probably was. The guy's made quite a lot of it.
Yeah.
But I think when you watch it back, for me, again, I don't think Stevenson's making enough of a play for the ball. I don't think he's kind of
it's very clumsy.
actively trying to play the ball. It's very clumsy for me. And he gives, in my head anyway, he gives the referee a decision to make. Do you know what I mean? By kind of pulling at the jersey and stuff. And the boy, there's no doubt at all, the boy is absolutely playing for it.
Mm-hmm.
But you've seen him give.
It's nowhere near as egregious, but I think there's very slight shades of Jack Hamilton and Diabate in this, in the sense that the county player's almost gone beyond the ball.
Yeah.
And he's having to almost kind of bring his body weight back. And I think he does. I think he makes too much of it, and that kind of makes the referee's mind up for him. I think actually Stevenson almost doesn't make enough of an attempt at a foul, almost. He doesn't really do anything at all. He's just kind of
just
there. Yeah. So I think that would have been a harsh one. But as you say, Blair, maybe the referee's looking at them both and going, that's two decisions that could go either way. So I'm just gonna, balance them out. Because it's maybe not so much that it's in his mind there, but if he gives it, then if the handball, potentially maybe you do find that that's given up the other end.
Yeah, probably. That's, to be fair, I've got to be honest, in terms of notes, that is me for this game. There was nothing else other than the quadruple substitution.
Well, yes, aye.
So, Greg, go and tell me, is that a manager who's pissed off at his squad, or is that a manager void of ideas?
A little bit from column A, a little bit from column B. I think it's hard not to see a quadruple sub and not see it as a little bit in the way of just a desperate roll of the dice. That it's a tacit acceptance that what's on the pitch at the minute hasn't worked, isn't working.
Yeah.
But to like put it this way, there's a reason it doesn't happen more often. And I think to put it bluntly, we weren't any better after the subs in a material sense.
No.
Now maybe that's because the game had just gone by us by that point anyway. I don't even necessarily. I personally wasn't crying out for changes much before then, but to change 4 in one go, just kind of, it just felt like this isn't working. Let's try something different. But also, on one hand, I did feel it was...
Let's do more of the same with different people.
Aye. It was just like, right, well, you guys are tired. And where I think it's not actually about Imre being raging as such is, if you're going to single out, like, Inseo for a bit of criticism after the game. We didn't leave him on. Didn't if he's the perceived weak link in terms of some of the goals and stuff, and you're keen to make a point, well, he's getting hooked by that logic. Whereas you're then kind of bringing off, and again, I'm not going to. I'm at risk of it just being when you're bringing on somebody like Montague or whatever, it's just more running about. So actually, it's just this kind of, well, that's not really worked. Let's get fresh legs on and just keep going. Let's keep, and you're dangerously close then to the whole what used to rip my knitting with Robson, which is to just kind of the hands gesticulating at the sidelines of like keep going. Like it's not working. You don't need to keep going. You need to change things, and I don't think the subs did that for us, which is ironic considering that there was 4 of them.
Duncan, did we miss Murray ball? Is that what we're saying?
No, not really, because what's more Murray ball than making 4 subs when you're getting beat? Like
taking all your defenders, putting all your strikers on.
I suppose, but
that's peak Murray ball.
Like the thing that, listen, I was obviously lapping it up when it worked, but like the thing that annoyed me with when Murray ball didn't work, because obviously I'm just turned with the wind, but like the thing that annoyed me with that is like, if that's the best way to win the game, why did you not do that at the start?
Yeah. Totally.
Like, you've spent all week working on a plan, and then an hour into it, you've gone, actually, nah, jacket, here's a totally different one with 4 different guys. And I'd say, do get me, I suppose you're right, that doesn't really do that. They just carried on the same plan with 4 different guys. But, I don't know. It's difficult to read, actually. I like the question that you asked, Greg. It's like, what is the motivation behind that quadruple sub? Because I don't know. It doesn't seem like it was furious vengeance and like the 4 of yous are coming off and you're never playing again. It didn't have that kind of feel to it at all. But it also wasn't a case of like, we're changing the approach and you 4 are unsuited to it and these 4 are better at it. I think you'd be hard pressed to argue that it was, kind of like for like upgrades.
Yeah.
As a collective. You could probably argue 1 or 2 of the individual points. And it didn't really make any sense. And again, it's like, what's the alternative? Like, we're complaining that we don't like the team that's on the park, and then he makes 4 changes and we complain about that as well. Like, there's a chance that we're just complaining. But it is also like sort of to try and make some sense of it, there's a couple of very specific moves in there, which is moving Jordan Doherty back into the midfield. Now, that can only really be one of 2 things. That's either you want J. Rowe on the park, and so you're making the room to get him in there, or you want Jordan Doherty in the midfield, and the way to do it is to bring in J. Rowe, or it's a combination of the 2. Bringing on Montague at the same time and taking off both Matthews and Brown would maybe suggest he was trying to get a bit more football into the midfield. But then,
why is he not started with it?
Exactly. Why have you gone from like one extreme to the other? Like, because this is actually as much my problem as anything. It's like starting Brown and Matthews and then taking off Brown and Matthews. Like, no. It's one and you replace them with the other one halfway through. Like, because they do the same job. You need one of them there. I didn't get it. I don't quite kind of work that. I can't quite work that out. There's other elements of it. Like, I think we've reached a certain consensus on Andy Winter. I don't think it's controversial of me to say that we're probably less than ecstatic with his overall enthusiastic. Let's go with that. There's not a huge amount of enthusiasm for Andy Winter, but he's the forward on the bench. Yeah. Like, he's who you've got. And I like, in terms of Richard Chin, we've all been crying out for Richard Trent, but what we're not crying out is for Richard Trent to come on when we're 2-0 down and chasing the game.
No.
Like, you want to see him, well, certainly I want to see him, on a decent surface in a game where we're maybe actually got like a 2-goal lead where he can go and do what he does best without the pressure of having to try and defend the back post and all this other kind of stuff. Sticking him on a chase a game, there's no point. And then 10 minutes after these subs, we get Josh Mullen on as well. And then it's like, well, now we've got wingers on, but we've taken off all the boys who might have been able to get in the end of these crosses. Like,
aye. It's exactly that.
And
I have to say, I have a... Oh, go on.
Yeah, just to round off this long rambling point, I said this to Greg yesterday. Like, it's incredibly trite, and I realise this, to say this the day after Lewis Gibson has gone out on loan. But he would give us something different.
Yeah.
And I don't even disagree with the decision to put him out. If he's not playing, he's not playing. So it's better that he goes out than he sits on the bench and doesn't play. And my argument isn't that he's better than any of these other players. But he is different.
Different too.
He just gives you something else. It gives you another option. It's not just like for like changes. Like to contrast him to Kai Montague, for example, right? Kai Montague might be a better football player than Lewis Gibson. I actually have no idea. I think it's a difficult thing to judge. Do give me certainly sees both of them much more than I do. And Pro supporters see Lewis Gibson more than I do as well. Like, I don't know which of them is better, but I know what Lewis Gibson does. And his teammates know what he does as well. And you can actually go, right, you're going to go on and you're going to give me pace, you're going to give me drive, you're going to try and whip crosses in, and some of them might go out or whatever, and that's fine. Whereas Kai Montague, for me, suffers from the same thing Andy Winter does, which is that he's fine at everything and excels at nothing. And again, that sounds harsh and I don't mean it to, but I would defy anybody who's only watched first team games for Raith Rovers to go, oh, Kai Montague, tell you what, he's really good at... Finish that sentence. Like, I don't know what he's good at. He seems to be fine. He's not embarrassing himself. He's not going out and making huge mistakes. He's not going out and costing points or anything like that at all. But by the same token, he just kind of exists. He just kind of furthers your overall aims by exactly the expected amount without actually... me and Scott talked about this earlier in the week, where it's like, there's no spikes in the radar of performance there. It was the word I couldn't think of the other day. You get these radar graphs, and it's just a circle. It's just like, Ike does everything fine. Andy Winter for a forward, fine. He's not falling out with his own feet. He's not kicking people and getting sent off. He's not scored any own goals. But he's not really adding anything either. And what I think this team needs is guys who have strengths and weaknesses that you can then work around.
Yeah.
Because if you go, right, so I said this was going to be a quick point to finish off. It's not. So Lewis Gibson, in Neil Collins' last game at Hampden Park, played kind of left wing back, and he was terrible.
To a torrid time, yeah.
It was set up wrong. It didn't suit him. He didn't even know whether he was coming or going. Torrid time is exactly the word for it. But you can work around that. You can go, right, this guy actually, he's really good at this and he's really good at this. He's really bad at trying to play wing back at Hampden Park. So cool, let's counteract that with other points. Let's play with Stevenson at left back. There's too many players in this team that you can't do that for. You can't go, right, so let's mitigate for these points he's not so good at, so we can really accentuate these points he is good at. Because instead it's just like just a guy who plays championship football to a middling standard.
But what I would say... sorry, Blair.
No, you carry on, mate, go for it.
All I was going to say, and it will be a brief point to that, is that for Montague... What I will say is we're seeing the same every time he comes on. He's generally speaking, he's playing in the same position. He's been asked to do the same things, etc. I think it's a fairly significant defence of Winter in that he's not getting that. what we're seeing is he's
that's
playing
true.
off the left,
Yeah,
he's
that's
playing off the right, he's playing as a number 9, he's playing as a second striker. I agree that there isn't any enthusiasm for Winter, and actually the strategy of bringing him in with each passing week feels, especially given, actually less to do with how he's playing and more how he's being used, feels more like he was a body that was available and then he came. But I think that as a defensive Winter, it's hard to judge when you're not playing the same position in the same role every week, and yet the expectation from fans is still the same, that you should be scoring goals. Well, actually, that's a tough nut to crack. Whereas I think the big difference there with Montague, and I accept your overall point, but for me the big difference is Montague is playing the same role, the same position every week. But Winter, he's just getting thrown into that kind of mixer of roles, and that can't be easy, especially in a team that teammates you've only known for 4 or 5 weeks, whatever. That can't be easy.
No, I think that's absolutely true. I was going to say the on the speciality thing of it again. I'll come back to exactly the same point. I think the only player we've got in that squad who has a speciality that we're not utilising is Josh Mullen.
Yeah,
I think it's worth having him on the park for his set pieces probably alone, especially given the fact that there's nobody for my money in there who's an absolute cannot be dropped. There's nobody in that sort of area of the park that you're going, aye, but if you put Josh Mullen in, you can't have Ross Matthews and Scott Brown and Paul Niso together. Like, sorry, it just doesn't add up for me. But the thing I'm getting, and I must admit it's a week-on-week thing, but it's starting to really, really piss me off, is moving Doherty into the midfield. It just doesn't make any sense at all.
Yeah.
Because if he's our best ball-playing midfielder, why is he not starting in midfield? And if he's not our best ball-playing midfielder, and what you want is Jero in the park, for whatever reason you want Jero in the park, take him off. Take Doherty off. Why are we changing? It's this constant need to change the personnel and the shape. I just think when you take a player out of right back and you put him in the centre mid, it's going to take him 5-10 minutes to settle and to get up to speed. Just bring on another midfielder.
Yeah.
Bring somebody on who's fresh and then going straight in there. If you really want to have Jado in the park for his aerial ability, does he have to play right back? Because I'm still not sold that he's a particularly fantastic right back, particularly fantastic defender. Do you know what I mean? If you're not playing him because Doherty's a better defender, bring Gio on in the second half and play him right mid. Like, do something different. It just feels like we just keep knocking the same door, and this exact same thing happens every week.
I agree with that completely.
Anyway, I'm done with this game entirely. And normally, I have to be honest, this would be the point where we'd wrap it up, and we probably do need to wrap it up quickly, but I think we're going to have probably about, I don't even know how many folk actually bother to listen to this, but however many, 5 of them, are all going to be saying the same thing. Are we in a relegation fight? So we had a pretty lengthy discussion, Greg, I think it's fair to say, on the bus on the way back.
Yeah.
Trying to be pragmatic about it. But, results the way they are, what do we think? Are we right in the mix here?
I think, well, mathematically, yes we are. But where I was on Saturday and remain for the time being, and that might change after the derby, but for me at the minute, it's not. And I kind of said as much on Pie and Bother the other day, and I think maybe rough, miffed a few folk, but it's not so much about other folk panicking and kind of I use the phrase like the sky is falling and whatever. It's more but it kind of is that, like, we are bad, but two things can be true. We are terrible at the minute, but there's no many other teams are so much better than us, and actually the league is set up in a way that, rightly or wrongly, we've still got to play all these teams again, and they have to play each other again. And so actually what you're really looking at is that on any given week, Ross County, Airdrie, Morton, Queen's Park, they might win. They might pick up a point. But actually, on balance, our home form isn't terrible. It's the away form that's the real issue. On balance, we've got more home games than we have away games left. That counts for something.
Yeah.
But also, and Duncan touched on this earlier, if you've got Queen's Park beating Dunfermline on Saturday or whatever, and you go, oh, that's terrible, they're catching up with us. Well, yeah, they are, but Dunfermline are then dropping. If you've then got Ayr giving away points to somebody, well, they're dropping into the mix as well. It's that thing of, there are two, in my humble opinion, there are too few games left, even though there are 9, 10 for some teams, but too few games left, too few points available for all of these teams to. And on the bus, a couple of people were saying like, oh, but, teams are hitting a purple patch. Well, no, they aren't. Objectively speaking, no, they aren't. And football's a meritocracy. Teams are not going to hit March and all of a sudden go 9 games unbeaten. It's just not going to happen. And so, will it be the case that we are terrible and it probably is much more uncomfortable of a run-in than it needs to be? Yeah, absolutely. Is it mathematically possible that we might finish bottom? Of course it is. It doesn't change my opinion currently, and I'm well aware it's only my opinion, that it doesn't mean that we are embroiled in this, oh, I can't believe it, well, actually it is what it is, and on any given week, we could be dropping to 7th or 8th, or actually in a couple of weeks' time, could be dropping to 9th or whatever, but then the next again week you win, and you're up 2 or 3 places. It's going to be that way till the end of the season. What you just need to bank on is that actually the head start you've got, so we're 10 points clear of, or not 10 points clear, but sort of 10 games or 9 games left. But it's the idea that 36 points is the magic number I would probably look at. 6 points from 9 games. If you get that, I genuinely think you're safe. I genuinely think you're not even in the equation for finishing 9th. And if you don't get 6 points from 9 games and you do get relegated, well, you can't complain about that because you've had all the opportunities in the world to right that wrong. But
this is the thing for me. The point that you made there about, there's only so many games left. There's only so many points available, but there's also lots of teams. That's the other thing.
Yeah.
Is, yes, you can look at it and go, oh, we're only what are we, 4 points off the bottom? No, we're 7 points off the. No, sorry, we are 4 points off the bottom. But there's also 4 teams below us.
Yeah.
So to your point there about nobody goes in a 9-game unbeaten run in March. Somebody might. 4 teams can't. Mathematically they could, but they're not gonna. And it's not just. I remember I made this joke last year, but it applies now as well. It's the Billy Connolly one about the 2 boys in the Serengeti, and one of them stops to tie his trainers. This is what you're doing that for. You can't outrun a lion. So I don't need to outrun the lion. I only need to outrun you. That's this. You don't need to be good. You just need to be not as shite as 2 other teams.
Mm-hmm.
That's the aim of the game. And listen, it doesn't feel good.
And that's exactly it.
It's not like we're not suddenly. I also, by the way, just can't imagine having listened to the first hour and however of this podcast, and then realise that we are the poster boys for the happy clappers. This is the optimist.
It's not a comfortable place to be.
Point. And would you believe? But because I'm of exactly the same opinion, which is that on balance, right now, gun to my head, are Wraith Rovers going to finish in the bottom 2? No, I don't think they will. And I mean, listen, they might. There's a lot of football to be played. There is, we've just complained for a very, very long time about a lot of things that this team sometimes gets wrong. But if you watched Queen's Park every week, or if you watched Airdrie every week, or if you watched Morton every week, or if you watched Ross County every week except this week, Dunfermline fans were very unhappy with Neil Lennon.
Mm-hmm.
Ayr United fans are really, really unhappy with Scott Brown. Nobody's having a great time other than the top 3. So the 7 teams below them, quite naturally, and again, I'm basically repeating your point, Greg, but effectively, everybody in that bottom 7 every week is either playing one of the top 3, which is very, very difficult, or they're playing each other, where points are coming off the board. Like, the 6 teams around us cannot win every week.
Yeah.
No.
Somebody has to keep dropping points. And it's basically just a case of every week that goes by, can you not lose ground to at least 3 of the teams below you? That's effectively the game that we're in. Now, you lose 5 games in a row, you will eventually lose that ground.
Yep.
But, as I say, I don't think we're great. I also don't think any of these other teams are great either. And I think that's the bit that you miss. And it's, it's a thing that Jim says in the commentary in Wraith TV that we come back to quite a lot. It's like other teams are allowed to be good. Other teams are allowed to be shite as well. Like, there's not... Morton, they get Ian Murray in and they had this little mini resurgence and they beat Dunfermline. By all accounts, it was brilliant when they beat Dunfermline. And then they get turned over and they had 2 men sent off. Like, they're not great either. Like, you've got, County beat us, but they've not shown at any point that they've got the ability to go on a run. And as we've just discussed at length, like, yeah, absolutely, they beat us. They beat us with 2 set pieces, but they weren't good. They deserved the 3 points without a shadow of a doubt. You're not suddenly like, oh God, Pep's Barcelona have pulled themselves off the canvas. They're going to finish third. Like, they are going to drop more points between now and the end of the season.
But even if they don't, and this is the point I made on the weekend as well, like the idea that I don't actually think there's any team in this league, and I include St Johnstone, that could go and win 4 games on the bounce at this point. I honestly don't think there's a team in the league can do it. I think the league cannibalises itself every year. Every team is capable of taking points off every other team. St Johnstone fans are complaining that they're not scoring enough goals and they're no lethal enough in front of goal. Do you know what I mean? It's a different complaint from us not being lethal enough in front of goal.
Yeah.
But the same problems exist throughout this league. Like, it's not, like you say, there's not one team running away with it. The only team, I think, potentially that could really upset the apple cart is Ross County. I think the turnaround that they've had under Kettlewell, like from the 19 games beforehand to have the same number of points in 7 games, like that's a massive turnaround. And they've not done it by being great.
Yeah.
They've just done it by being less shit than they were for the first 19 games. Do you know what I mean? And it's, will they continue to go on and do that for the next 9-10 games? Yeah, possibly. They might. But are Queen's Park and, do you know what I mean, Morton and Airdrie and Dunfermline, and I reserve the right to panic in a fortnight, 3 weeks. I just think we're a wee bit early for it. For my
yeah. I mean, I think it's a really good point you've made there in the sense that, like, if anybody's in a false position, and not necessarily literally league position, but kind of like County are better than their points tally would suggest. Now, their performances now are better than the points they've got on the board, but not by much. No. They're not a top 4 side. They've effectively become good enough to be in that blob that we are in, as opposed to being isolated at the bottom. But I tell you this, Ayr United have got worse.
Yeah.
Like, it looked like for a while, exactly. Worse. Like, there was maybe a top 4, maybe even a top 5. There is not. There is a top 3 and there is a bottom 7.
Yep.
And as I say, and this is the thing, that the point that I keep coming back to, the point that sort of gives me the most comfort is, I don't think at any point, and I include right now, at any point this season, we've been one of the 2 worst sides in the division.
No.
I just don't. I just do not believe that we are one of the 2 worst sides in the division. Now, the form table will tell you otherwise. Don't look at that. Listen to me. I just don't think we are. And it's that we listen, we spoke about it again a couple of weeks ago. We said 0-0 at Capello, 0-0 at Starks Park against St Johnstone. They're either good results or bad results, depending on what happens afterwards. Now, we've just lost a game, so already that starts to look a bit edgy. But if we go to East End Park and we win, then that's back to being pretty good results. And I don't think that's out of the question, because I don't think Dunfermline are very good either, as we've just been saying. And it probably is a case that you probably can look at that now and look at the bottom 7, as I say, and say that the next team that loses 3 games in a row probably finished in the bottom 2. And that could be us. there's also 6 other teams that could easily be as well.
Yeah.
And it is that, because if you lose 3 in a row, just numbers will tell you, the likelihood is 2 of them will beat the teams around you. And it's almost like, it's like the beauty of the split in the Premiership, as much as, it was quite controversial when it came in. Like, it's brilliant, because you look at the top half of the post-split now, and it's like, well, Hearts, if you want to win the league, you need to go and beat the teams around you. Like, it's just that dynamic. And it means that things can change so quickly, and that can work for you or it can work against you. But I mean, right now, as much as there's been all the kind of panic and all this kind of stuff, I mean, honestly, if you were asking me to lay odds, I mean, 9th is maybe a bit, but I mean, I think we're as likely to finish 4th as we are to finish bottom. And I don't think because I don't think either of those things will happen. I think we'll finish 6th. But
this is the exact point I was making on the bus on Saturday, and I got lambasted for it.
You got slaughtered for it.
I've got that upset as well.
Promoted. No, that's not what I said.
I think for me as well, a big part of it is it's less to do with people are unhappy with the form at the minute. People are unhappy with the football the team are playing. I get that. So of course I get that. But for me, it's when it becomes a vehicle then to almost be like Kimry was a rushed appointment and it was this. Well, no.
John Potter needs to be sacked. John Potter was sacked. Well, somebody else needs to be sacked then.
Then you're into this board is a shambles, it needs to change. Well, actually, there's been fairly significant change at board level over the last few while. Like, it's just a what's next? What's the next thing you want to point the finger at and claim you were right about all along?
It's chicken littles. It's people who are desperate for it.
But this is the thing, and this, like, so genuinely, like, you can be concerned about relegation. That's fine. Like, we're in that mix. We're in that conversation. But let's not kid ourselves on that you get some sort of prize for predicting at the end of February or March that we were going to get relegated, and then if that happens, that you somehow could have prevented that. Like, it is what it is. You can be annoyed at what's happening on the park to the point of being pretty pissed off, to the point of even apathy that you maybe miss a couple of games and stop going. It doesn't change the fact that on any given week we could go up or down 2, if not 3 places, and that's probably going to keep happening right up to the wire. And actually, if you look at the last home game against Ross County, that's ironically where my only semblance of panic comes in, because if you're looking at any of the 7 teams to play against on your last game of the season, where it's possibly you win to finish 7th, or even 8th for that matter. Sorry, it's not Ross County. That's not who I'm wanting, and that's probably the only scope I've got at the minute for saying I would infinitely rather that was a Morton, an Airdrie, a Queen's Park, or whatever. But listen, it is what it is, and it's going to change week upon week upon week. We just need to it's an analogy, again, I used over the weekend. At the minute, it's that kind of, you're getting to the final rounds of a prize fight. You just need to stay off the canvas long enough that the bell will go and save you. And it doesn't make you a good football team. It doesn't mean you've had a successful season.
Yeah.
But if you can just stay on your feet till the summer, then you can reset and you take it for there. And that's all you need to do. We're not going to turn into Barcelona overnight.
It's true. I was going to say, the good news for anybody who's listening to this and thinking we're absolutely full of shit, the 3 of us, and we're massively in trouble. And to be fair, you're not going to wait long for somebody else to come on this podcast and agree with you, because we didn't agree within that group chat either. So I was going to say, I don't think that the views of this evening are necessarily the views of the entire collective.
No. This is not a representative panel.
No, I don't think so.
We are the pariahs in that group chat. That's,
I think so. But on that note, I think we are going to wrap it up. That's an hour and 28 minutes on possibly the worst game of the season. Other than, actually, Duncan, we did pretty similar after that Morton game, so I think we maybe are the problem.
A cheek to complain that other people love being miserable.
Yeah. So on that note, thank you very much for listening, everybody, and we will not be back later in the week because we don't have a game next week, which is the best news of all. But yeah, we'll be back for another pre-match in a week or two before a hotly contested Fife derby that we can look forward to. So until then, thank you very much for listening, and goodbye.